Good afternoon, everybody. This is Atmospheric Alex here, and welcome back to another severe weather outlook and discussion video. We're going to be going over the next few days of severe weather, including everything that could be happening next week, as we've got a big plume of moisture that's going to be sitting over the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Southeast. But we're going to start off the video here with our Storm Prediction Center's convective outlook. We do have two slight risk areas in effect for today, or actually three. I just noticed there's that third one up in Vermont, but you could see right on your screen here where we could be talking about some severe weather. We're going to kind of go over some of the general hazards. We do have a 5% chance of a tornado. This is honestly starting to downtrend a bit on latest model guidance, which is good news because you guys there have seen a lot of tornadoes lately, so downtrends are what you could take at this point. But you could see for the Louisville area, the Evansville area, where we could be talking about a tornado risk later on today. Wind risk, 15% all across the board. Hail risk, we do have a chance for very large hail out here in the Rockies area. We're really far eastern Colorado, going into western Nebraska, just like always. In terms of tomorrow's outlook, we do have a large slight risk in our northern section up here, and then we do have a little bit of something over here as well. I don't really think that's going to do all that much, and then we have that big marginal risk in between, where we could see some storms kind of riding down like this from the northwest, and I guess we're going to kind of have to monitor that a little bit closely as we head into tomorrow. But we don't have too many main hazards, just a little bit of a tornado risk. We have a pretty good wind risk up here in the portions of North Dakota. I do expect this to become an enhanced risk of severe weather, and we are expecting a lot of wind up there, potentially destructive wind, and our hail as well is going to be quite elevated. In terms of our day 3 outlook, we do have again a pretty large slight risk up here to the north, nothing much to talk about there. And our day 4 outlook, again, yet another slight risk. And then after that, things will begin to shift closer to the Midwest and a bit further off to the east. As we take a good look at what our future radar could look like today, this is our HRRR model. A lot of storms are going to be firing up here across portions of Missouri, like the St. Louis area. And you can see we do have a couple of supercells embedded in with this line and cluster right here, which we'll have to wait and see if we do get a tornado risk out of that. But you can see across our main risk area, we actually don't have much going on. Look at that big red X right there. Models either are not picking up on this, or we just have too much cloud cover and too much light rainfall going on right now, which is really inhibiting the risk area, not allowing storm energy to build up, and that could actually be the case. So for once in what seems like a lifetime, our tornado risk may actually underperform for Illinois and Indiana. I thought you'd never hear me say that in the year 2026, right? And then you could see more storms moving on. But we're going to head on over to our Rockies region now and see what that looks like later today. You have some storms popping up across Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, going into New Mexico as well. Those could definitely have a damaging wind and very large hail risk. And as we continue going on throughout the evening here, a couple of stronger cells kind of become a little bit more defined here, like right out through there. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a scattered wind gust report of 80 miles an hour today. You tend to get very strong winds that come out of the mountains. And these storms will probably die out around midnight tonight. We're taking a really good look here, kind of in between all of our risk areas. I really don't think our eastern risk area is going to do all that much, but in between everything, we have our giant marginal risk. I do foresee a pretty good northwest flow event through this area, and we could definitely see an upgrade to a slight risk of severe weather across portions of western and central Tennessee. Could we see something in eastern Tennessee? That remains to be seen, but we'll have to wait and see. Again, a lot of storm complexes coming down from the northwest here, originating kind of out of this specific area right within here. That's what it looks like, and then they kind of form and they do something like that number. We'll have to wait and see. There's a chance that I may even see a strong to severe storm tomorrow, though I am not holding my breath. You know how things go out here. Not really all that much happens. I'm in the no weather zone. You can see another overnight complex into Middle Tennessee there, and so we're going to have multiple rounds of potentially strong storms to contend with tomorrow. And now I did want to look at tomorrow's North Dakota threat in pretty good detail. We're actually going to go over all the parameters with this one because it does look a lot more significant. I can't speak today, goodness, just like always. you can definitely see we do have a line of storms originating out of Montana and into portions of Saskatchewan as we go into tomorrow evening. And we do have a few storms and supercells starting up down here as well. And you got a very strong low pressure system off to the west of this area. And you're going to begin to see a pretty substantial destructive windstorm begin to develop. Look at that right there. We could be talking about a derecho potentially going into tomorrow night across those areas, racing on off to the northeast. So if you do live in those areas, you need to stay very weather aware. Could be talking about 75 to 90 plus mile an hour wind gusts. Can't even roll out stray gusts even higher than that. And you can see some of these Boeing segments. Look it up here near Moose Jaw and Regina. That could definitely be a big issue, if you have enough downdraft storm energy available. We're talking about a lot of really damaging destructive winds being brought down to the surface, and this really continues on through. It's not until 2 to 4 a.m. when things finally begin to quiet down. So an overnight derecho is possible tomorrow. We're going to have a ton of moisture transport for this event. You could see with your wind barbs flying out of the south to the southeast direction. Pretty strong also. But you could definitely see where we're having our dew points pooling up here into our low to mid 60s. That is more than sufficient enough for significant severe weather, especially when you have such an intense driver off to the west that will promote your damaging winds / derecho. Our surface storm energy is going to be plentiful out there. We're talking between 2,000 to 3,000 Cape, certainly well over enough for a sustained mesoscale convective system / derecho tomorrow night. And really this, again, the storm energy actually lasts all the way up until midnight tomorrow night. So your threat is going to be long lasting and is going to unfortunately be nocturnal in nature. So that's something to really contend with. And I think one more thing we should probably look at is our supercell composite. I'm not really seeing, anything in the way of a tornado target tomorrow, at least from what I was seeing. But as we kind of load up the graphics here, we do have some pretty good supercell composite. Right within here, do you kind of see where we have these weird little indentions, these little kinks here? You could certainly be talking about a more elevated tornado risk in areas like that. And you could see some areas up here as well. They kind of bend back a little up near Regina. You see that there. That also bends back. That could cause a lot more vorticity at the surface. And this becomes a lot more apparent as we head later on into the night. Again, I do think we could even see some supercells across this area, and we'll have to watch for more elevated tornado risk going into northern South Dakota and southern North Dakota, if that isn't too confusing for you all. And again, that pocket of favorability just kind of continues throughout the night. Now then, as we move into, it looks like Sunday here, all right, on our RRFS model. I don't really like using this model too much. However, it does paint, I'd say, a decent picture of what could happen, not what likely will happen, but what could happen, and you could already see it here. We're talking about some storms and maybe even some supercellular activity across northern North Dakota over there, and then continuing on through time, even more supercells. I do think that Sunday could have a pretty good ceiling for a significant severe weather event / outbreak. You could see a lot of storms going up over there. Some of those looking quite feisty in nature, but you look at that very large hail for sure across some of that risk area, and we could see it bow out and turn into a pretty nasty mesoscale convective system, or even just a complex in general pushing on off to the east. Our environment is once again going to be very favorable. Dew points in the low to mid 70s. This far north, that is quite exceptional if you ask me. And yeah, that environment up there is going to be cranking. You can see our wind barbs here. Note, like right within this area, how you have a lot of due southeasterlies slamming straight into that developing line, that developing MCS of storms. And if you see any supercells embedded within that, oh boy, you're gonna see a tornado threat. We could even be talking about a strong tornado threat in an environment like that. And that really continues on through. Your wind barbs are super duper favorable going into the overnight hours as well. So you have a lot of spin, a lot of vorticity, a lot of streamwise vorticity in your atmosphere. Our surface-based storm energy, what are we talking about? Well, we're looking upwards and even over 4,000 Cape. So this is definitely a very, big time environment out here. Could even be volatile. We'll have to kind of determine that when we look at our supercell composite. But you could see our storm energy lasts a little bit more into the overnight hours. We're still talking about 3,000 Cape in Fargo by the time we reach 6 a.m. the next morning. wow, that environment is going to stay favorable for a long period of time. So yeah, certainly going to see significant severe weather. And what about our 0 to 3 kilometer cape? This whole area actually lights up like a firework here, and some embedded segments here. You could see something like that right there. You have that right there, which would definitely promote maybe a strong tornado risk, and we're going to have to watch out for that pretty closely. And really, those will continue to move on through. Those parameters stay quite elevated into the overnight hours. Our 0 to 1 kilometer storm relativity tells a slightly different story. Your storms are favorable to the west, but if you see anything out to the east right here, take a look at those valleys between 400 to almost 500 0 to 1 kilometer helicity. That's a lot, and that would support strong tornadoes for certain, and maybe even something a bit stronger than that. But we're a little bit far out, so we're going to have to wait and see. I don't want to jump to any conclusions just yet. That area becomes very favorable for tornadoes overnight. If we see any supercells ahead of that line, well, that could be a big problem. And yes, if you're curious, this is a very volatile environment on your northern end here. We are seeing supercell composite values between a 20 to even a 35. So your environment is cooking out there for sure. Kind of all in that orange area and that red area too is just kind of favorable. And that's pretty much all I would have to say about Sunday at the moment. But now I want to go ahead and take a broad view at the big picture here. What could we be seeing after these upcoming severe weather events? The answer is more severe weather events, of course. We're seeing a massive high pressure system that's going to be building across the central U.S. into portions of the Ohio Valley, and it's going to be scooping up a ton of storm energy with it. Take a look at this. 6,000 Cape. Oh man, yeah. So we're going to see a lot of storm energy building right in here, and the European model tends to overdo this a bit, but we're talking about well over 7,000 Cape here potentially. Look at that for Omaha, Nebraska on Sunday. Man, if we see any storms down there, oh man, it's going to be quite nuclear indeed in terms of, how fast our storms could strengthen, how intense they may be getting. But again, we may have some warm, dry air aloft preventing that from happening. But regardless, you see a ton of storm energy building on through this whole entire area. Anywhere that is highlighted in this purple color is very favorable and honestly would be considered a powder keg. If we see anything go wrong in this area right within here, we could be quickly switching attention to a surprise, significant severe weather event / outbreak. So we're going to really have to watch out for this. We do have a lot of warm and dry air aloft, which could hopefully keep severe storms at bay. But if even just a pop-up shower forms in this environment, it could quickly turn south fast and literally turn south. In this pattern, you will have storms riding down like that. And this very bubbly environment will continue to persist for quite a few days. You can see, again, 5,000 to 6,000 storm energy. We even have almost 5,000 down here in East Tennessee. It looks like I may receive some action. Those are going to be the kind of nights where you're sitting out there, you see a tall cloud just off in the distance, and suddenly you look back and it's a gigantic thunderstorm. Looks like a bomb went off, and that's what could potentially happen in this upcoming environment for sure. And really just remains extraordinarily favorable through this time frame for severe weather. If anything pops off, it's going to get quite nasty quite quickly. And the sauna is going to be returning, so that's another thing to note. As we look at our dew points here, you can see we're already approaching 80-degree dews by the time you head into Sunday, but even going into Monday, that increases further, and we have some pretty good pockets of 80-degree dew points across that area, down there. And, in those areas at 8 o'clock in the evening, it's going to feel like you're swimming in the atmosphere, basically. So, yeah, that's certainly something. You're going to feel the storm energy out there. It's going to feel heavy, even though moist air is actually lighter than dry air, believe it or not. And you can see 80-degree dew points continuing to move on through. And this pattern really continues here. Even for East Tennessee, you have some upper 70-degree dews down there. And so again, it's going to be your 8 o'clock sauna. That's exactly what it's going to feel like outside. So you're going to be swimming in your atmosphere, looking at clouds developing that could quickly turn to storms. Honestly, I'm a little bit excited for this. It's going to be hot, miserable, but at the same time, going to be very conducive for severe weather as well. With all this humidity also comes a big-time heat wave as well, and we're going to take a good look at this here. We're seeing our high temperatures quickly climb into our mid-90s here, and even closing in on some upper 90s being possible, as we head into next next week. Take a look at some of these high temperatures across the screen here. 100, almost 105 here. Look at that for portions of North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, and West Virginia there. It's going to be baking hot out there, and over there won't have as much humidity, so your heat will be easier to kind of develop and move on through. And finally, you might get a bit of a reprieve, but that is not a forecast. And like I said, it's going to be very stormy, though not as stormy as it could be. We have a lot of wildfires out there in the Rocky Mountains right now, a lot of smoke being wafted into your mid to upper atmosphere. That can actually provide a cap, basically an area of warm, stable, dry air aloft. And that can honestly save some people from this crazy pattern coming up, I do believe. But you can still see we do have these clusters of severe storms here on our European model. Look at that one right there. We have a full-on, almost a derecho, a maybe derecho right there, pushing through Iowa, where they typically form, it seems like. So that moves on through. That's a long track storm system. Holy cow. Yeah, that would definitely be a derecho there modeled on the European model. And then continuing to move the clock on forward, you have these daily thunderstorms that form in the center of your ridge that could quickly turn severe. It doesn't look like much from the model, but look at that complex right there. From Detroit down to Indianapolis, you can see your high pressure there that is pushing out a ton of damaging winds, maybe even destructive winds, as it pushes off to the southwest like that. Just kind of an example of the types of storms you could potentially see during this upcoming pattern. Pushing the clock even further forward, you can see that pattern does remain intact, and more storm systems, more mesoscale convective systems are possible, and the derecho word could be thrown around a lot. And I just mentioned fire weather concerns. We do have a lot of it out here for portions of Utah. We have an extreme risk for fire weather. That is the highest risk you could possibly get across these areas, and so we have to really monitor things closely, as it's going to be very, very exceptionally dry out today. We have dew point values in your single digits, even approaching your negatives there, and very strong winds as shown by your wind barbs. You can see, again, very dry conditions. It's going to get very windy out there as well as I move my scenes around. You can see very strong, maybe even locally damaging winds as well. We're talking gusts upwards of 40 to almost 50 miles an hour in some areas. With your very low relative humidity values, you're going to have wildfires moving extremely quickly, and I do think we'll see a significant wildfire outbreak across some of those areas today, so you need to keep your guard up. And if you see a fire coming really close, evacuate immediately. And now, with all that being said, it is time for today's state spotlight. So we're going to go ahead and spin the wheel here and see which state I'll be doing a 2-day weather forecast for. All right, here we go. You can see we're kind of going on through here. Was it going to land on Georgia, Florida? It looks like, wow, that's kind of random there, Connecticut. So we're going to zoom all the way in on the state here, and we're going to take things through time. We're looking at our high temperatures today, probably going to be in your upper 70s to low 80s there out across the region. Hartford, Connecticut, around 78 degrees. And as we go into our overnight lows, they're actually going to be very pleasant out there. Look at that, in your mid to even upper 60s. So it's going to feel absolutely gorgeous out there tonight, for sure. You can see along your coastline, still the same temperature, so it's just going to be beautiful everywhere you look there in terms of your temperatures. Tomorrow we're talking about highs in, again, your low 80s being possible. We're going to have some southwesterly winds. It looks like some slightly cooler temperatures down in your low to mid 70s, etching their way up to the northeast like that through time. And what's this going to do? Well, it's going to overspread the area, and by the time you reach tomorrow evening, we're talking about temperatures in your upper 60s, low 70s, and then your overnight lows for tomorrow night going to be a little bit cooler out there. Talk about low 60s, maybe even a scattered upper 50 in there. So you may want a light hoodie tomorrow night. We'll have to wait and see. Now, unfortunately, we are expecting some rain out there. Not a lot of rain, just enough you could see some scattered, moderate to maybe even heavy rain showers forming this evening into tonight. Maybe even a rumble of thunder will be possible out there. And then as we head into tomorrow, you could see maybe a more sustained period of rain, say in Hartford there, as we go into tomorrow morning and some of those surrounding areas as well. But it looks like in the afternoon things should clear up quite nicely. We're expecting our rain to move out by the time we reach tomorrow in the early afternoon hours, not before another round of rain moves into tomorrow evening. Again, this isn't going to be too heavy in nature, but you're just going to have to want to pack an umbrella if you're going out and about, and that just continues on through. And it looks like your rain will move out for good tomorrow night. And with that being said, thank you all so much for tuning into today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to my little corner of the weather community, share this video with friends, family, and social media, and even leave a comment in the section below. And with that being said, everyone stay weather aware out there. It's going to get pretty active over the next few days and even the next week. Have a wonderful night, everyone, and I'll see you back here very soon.